So we need to do something different. Now, it's not that we do everything bad. Business is very, very happy with the fact that IT is very secure and very reliable. They like the security factors, the fact that in general, applications are always available, but they want it easy, they want it more dynamic, and they always want it cheaper than it is today. They also want to be able to access their information from any device. You don't want to be writing applications for a specific device because you don't know who your user is and what kind of device they have. So you need to ensure that it's portable from that perspective as well. So, not too hard to do, just, make it easy, cheaper, I can access it from anywhere, and by the way, make it secure at the same time. So enter cloud computing. And the whole idea behind cloud computing is to combine the good from an IT perspective with what the industry wants. So take that security and reliability and combine it with the fact that it's very easy to do, it's very dynamic, it's quick, and it's also secure and scalable.
Carriers and network service providers will either evolve to become their clients' trusted guides to and in the cloud environment, or they'll risk becoming irrelevant. Now, what that means is that rather than simply enabling the shift to cloud services through our networks, telecom carriers must leverage our skills and provide the products, services, and expertise that will enable our clients to fully benefit from the cloud. Now, let me give you a few examples. We have to engineer our networks and data centers for reliability, security, and redundancy. That's table stakes in today's environment. We also have to evolve our networks to operate in an application-driven environment. And by that, I mean we can't simply offer access and let the chips fall where they may. We have to collaborate with our customers and with our partners. And we have to look beyond the traditional organizational structures and embrace the new practices that drive collaboration, innovation, and productivity. We have to address barriers to the cloud adoption, which includes reliability, security, and also interoperability. Now, the good news is that these requirements are exactly the issues that carriers have the greatest sensitivity to, and that carriers have been addressing for years. As carriers, we can put our natural strengths to work, meet current challenges, and capture new cloud services opportunities.
You've heard a lot about technology trends, pervasive broadband, the integration of networking, storage, and virtualization technologies all colliding, offering new capabilities, and cloud architectures are surfacing. And these cloud architectures are different from data centers today or virtualized data centers, and they have elastic properties, which means they can scale the capacity with the demand. They have pay-as-you-go pricing models and self-service capabilities as well, where a user can provision their own services. So it's a very exciting time for those of us that are also looking at the technology aspects. Customers are also still looking very critically at all the ROI spends, at all the ROI capabilities that any new technology is going to offer to them. And they're looking for what we call at Microsoft, investments that allow them that with less, they get to do a lot more. So they're not just looking for cost reduction anymore, they're looking for new capabilities as well, agility, as you heard from Tony earlier. And for a lot of small businesses in Canada, they're looking for simplification of IT. IT is becoming very complex to them, and so they're looking for ways to simplify the delivery of IT services to their end users. And they want to keep pace with innovation as well. And the last is regulatory. You've probably heard a lot about privacy and security legislation, but I also wanted to point out that 6 months ago, the Obama administration adopted a new policy position, which meant that they wanted all their federal IT managers to look at cloud-first architectures. So these are some of the factors that are influencing what we see as an opportunity in Canada. And these numbers are a little bit different than what Michael showed, because I'm showing you software spend, not total hardware spend, but we see cloud computing growing at a 30% capitalized annual growth rate over the next 3 years. versus the traditional IT software spend at 4%. And what you see down here is the cloud preference by segment. So the size of the circles represent the number of entities, but you'll see small and medium-sized businesses will have a preference for public cloud architectures. We think academic institutions will also prefer public cloud or multi-tenant solutions. As you move to the left, you'll see government and enterprise institutions preferring public cloud for data sovereignty, or they want to have more control over that experience. And in terms of workload adoption, we certainly see, as Sean mentioned earlier this morning, communication and collaboration applications and services being the first adopters in terms of workloads, email, CRM, et cetera. And database also going to be a large opportunity for those of us interested in this space. That's a little bit about the opportunity in Canada.
So how do you get into the business of the cloud? When we made our cloud strategy public, we announced that we are building an open cloud marketplace to deliver cloud services and infrastructure solutions built on the HP cloud stack, leveraging our leadership in hybrid infrastructure, and looking specifically at service providers as a key part of this ecosystem, as key partners in the delivery of this open marketplace vision. To enable this open marketplace vision, we, of course, are making available things that you're probably very familiar with, devices, PCs, laptops, tablets, printers, storage, computing, security. We are kind of blessed in that way. We're able to deliver many of the components needed for the cloud services provider to get into that business. And this particular vision is quite interesting because in the open cloud marketplace will be run by HP, offered as a service, providing a single marketplace that integrates consumer, enterprise, developer services. It will be open for HP, third-party providers, and service providers that will take advantage of this to create the opportunity to address consumer, small and medium-sized business, enterprise, and public sector needs. What is important about this strategy, though, is that it goes beyond simply providing the components or infrastructure to build and operate a cloud, but rather it also brings in an important part of the HP experience, getting into new, emerging, and disruptive businesses. So we are leveraging this expertise and many years of trial to help cloud services providers assess the market to determine what offerings to launch, segment customers, create vertical areas of attention, develop pricing strategies, create sales and marketing strategies, essentially helping them monetize the cloud.
When I look at this slide, what I see as a former telco operator is private cloud is operational efficiency. Public cloud is growth. That's money. How do I get and trust those enterprises and those consumers to start to go to the public cloud? What do I need to do? We look at some of the numbers, whether it's 140 billion, whether it's 75 billion or 80 billion. I have a number that says 40 billion will be in 2015 a public cloud number. You have to slice and dice it however way you want. The bottom line is it's big. Your customers are going there because they want to become more efficient. Can you help them become more efficient? 40% of those revenues are going to come from SME. What do you want to be when you grow up? Can you compete with EC2? We saw earlier an example with France Telecom. Look at the pricing for EC2 versus what France Telecom is offering. Can you compete? Is that a race to the bottom? How many infrastructure as a service providers do we need? Think about that with your strategies. What do you have that's important? What do you have that you can offer that's unique? What skills do you bring to the table? We look at IT managed services. We look at the data center and infrastructure. How do I get more efficient from disk to application? That's hardware and software engineered together to become more efficient. That's an efficiency game. You have to become more efficient. What do I need to do from an automation perspective? And many of our panelists have spoken about that. If you can't automate, you will not win. Period. If you can't automate, you will not win. You can't beat the people who are there. You have a valuable asset. It's called your network. Anybody else have a network? None of those other players have it. How do you take that and make it part of the SLA? Make it an integral part. But you have to be able to automate that. We've struggled with automating the provisioning of the network. We struggled with managing the network. We struggled with creating bundled services across mobile, broadband, IPTV, all these lovely things. We have to figure that out. Otherwise, you won't get there. Otherwise, the network continues to be just that bit pipe. Expertise. You have expertise.
So let's have a look at what I call a simple, complex example in terms of what the cloud providers need to do. We have an enterprise, which of course can be government. And here we have two clouds, Cloud 1 and Cloud 2. Very simple, complex example. And of course, some of the IT-supported packages. At the lowest layer, we have to provision different virtual machines with different hardware, different operating system, different DASD, different networking needs. And overlaid across all of these layers, we have high availability, disaster recovery. If that data center gets taken out by a tornado, how quickly do you need to be up? Do you need an active setup? And of course, SLAs. At the software as a service layer, I'll illustrate all of the issues on platform on this particular example in the interest of time. Imagine that Cloud 1 is unified communications, Cloud 2 is ERP. Each of these two solutions is modular, and an enterprise can subscribe to one or all of the modules. So first of all, which module are you going to subscribe to? It needs to be provisioned. None of these two examples work on their own. For example, in both examples, you need a database. That database doesn't come from the unified communication supplier, as an example. So you need to provision third-party products which are embedded in these solutions. There's typically a whole stack of the third-party products. So that needs to be taken care of. Licensing. Why did I put licensing there? After all, the whole promise of the cloud is there is no license, there is no maintenance fee. But the reason is simple, we're not there yet. So for those providers who still are in the licensing model, you need to ensure that you've got both parts covered, both your enterprise and your partners and suppliers. Flow down is an interesting one. All of these levels, at this level, you're talking about the end user. The end user doesn't know and doesn't want to know about the infrastructure. So picking on different modules within unified communications, voice over IP, messaging, telepresence, all of them will have different needs, different capacity requirements on infrastructure as a service. And it needs to be provisioned as a flow down automatically. You could also go further. You could say there are power users and there are novices. So the usage patterns will also play in. We've got peak and off-peak, of course, and prioritization. And on SLAs, at all of the levels, if you have partners, not only do you have to live up to certain SLAs for your customers, you have to live up for the SLAs to the partners, the flow down for your partners. So, good news and bad news, and Brian alluded to it. Time to market and cost is very critical. The whole promise is on demand, if you remember the circle. And the promise of the cost is that be lower than in your current environment. So automation, going back to Brian's talk, is absolutely critical here. We've got new business models, new business processes. Deploying something for the very first time versus adding resources like users versus hitting a ceiling going through an authorization loop in an enterprise. We've already talked about some of the flow down models. And we can have different licensing models even for the embedded applications.